This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick.
And here we find, this is after the Demandred section, we're walking into the Nynaeve section here. Nynaeve sitting with Swan and Leanne doing her examination of stilling, of the sever.
So this is going to be part 2 of the prologue, the first message.
First line, of course, is "Stop fidgeting." Nynaeve testily flipped her long braid over her shoulder. "This won't work if you twitch around like children with an itch." Neither was really fidgeting, but the heat had Nynaeve on edge. A couple lines later.
Well, she's using Mogedian's power to test Suan and Leanne to see if they're...
Yes.
Well, just try and heal them from stilling. She's doing her first attempt to heal stilling in this book, which has got to be one of the longest roadways. It's one of the really exciting moments when you realize that she's actually able to heal stilling. Like, I really like it when Jordan drops it, but man, there's 2 or 3 scenes in this book where I think she's going to do it, and then he cuts away. And he just, the tension builds. He builds the tension on healing stilling so well. But it is one of my one of the frustrating things about this book is, so I'm like, oh, this is the scene where she heals stilling, and I'm like, no, that's still half the book away.
Yeah. I was kind of waiting for it too. I was like, wait, it doesn't happen here, does it? No. Wait, does it? It doesn't. But
But I think she examines Suan and Leanne 3 more times before she finally figures it out.
I think that's right. Yeah, it's quite a few times in any case. We see Swan and Leanne are totally in disbelief, for lack of a better word. They don't believe that Nynaeve will ever be able to do this. They just feel like they have to do her this favor, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she made it sort of a condition, or I'm going to spill all your secrets type situation. This is a painful event for them, and every time she sits down and tries to heal them, she's bringing that pain back up. So it's tough. You got to give them some sympathy for not really wanting to be there. I've had a lot of people be like, well, why wouldn't they just want to do everything they can to get healed again? And it's like, first of all, they think it's not possible at all, and second of all, it was hugely traumatizing. They don't want to come back to it and revisit it every freaking day.
Yeah, I mean, my head went there right away. I guess I can understand why you would think, why wouldn't someone want to do everything they could? But I feel like this is more like the equivalent of, Swan and Leanne lost their legs. And Nynaeve is like, here, let me try to fix that. And they're like, girl, you can't put the legs back. It doesn't work that way.
There's no leg to heal.
We just need to learn to live our lives now. Yeah. And this is hard, but we're gonna get through it. But it's in a painful event that someone would probably rather try to move forward and learn how to live their life in a new way than constantly revisit the fact that they lost their legs every day. You know what I mean?
It does kind of make Suan a pirate, though. With the peg leg.
She was already sort of a pirate.
Exactly, with the fish guts makes her even more so.
What does she say exactly? It won't work in any case, she snapped. Her manner of speaking was the same, too. You can't patch a hole when the whole boat's burned. She's like, you're trying to fix the small thing, but the whole structure has been destroyed, she's saying to Nynaeve. There's nothing to fix.
Yeah, and we see the same thing with, Matt's eye and a few other limbs that go missing, where it's I can heal over this stump, but I can't bring back what's missing. And they see it as a missing limb, not just a severing, a cut to be able to be bridged.
I'm just going to say this. We may want to cut this in the future, but I see this a lot more like a vasectomy than having your arm removed. It's just a tube that's been snipped. You can put it back together. It's all right.
Or more of a vasectomy than a hysterectomy.
Yes.
I think that's a better comparison. Because, a hysterectomy...
all the parts are still there. They're just... if you just put them back together, they'll work again.
Not that all vasectomies are reversible.
Well, sure. But, that's my best analogy.
I'd just like to point that out, that I get that people a lot who are like, oh, vasectomies are 100% reversible. They're really not. You can sometimes reverse them, but not all the time. and there are complications. And I feel like that is a good parallel because, like, there are some complications when she does finally heal them. It's not 100%.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if you got a hysterectomy, then there's
can't put
the
it
entire
back.
reproductive system is gone. Yeah. And I think that's what being burned out is like. So we see people who are severed get healed, and that's like someone's been cut. But it does seem like being burnt out may not be healable. And I think that's much more of a destroying the whole organ situation.
I always imagined, like with my vasectomy analogy, and I apologize again for anyone who's a little squeamish about that. So this is like, imagine, the pipe that brings water pressure to your sink in your kitchen, say, or brings hot water to the sink in your kitchen. If you cut that pipe as somewhere in the wall and put a cap on either end of the pipe, the hot water will no longer flow to the faucet, right? That's what I see stilling as. It's very surgical. You cut it, you put a cap on either side, and the hot water no longer goes to at least that one point. I always saw burning out more as like if you forced so much water pressure into that pipe that's just for a kitchen sink that it exploded somewhere inside the wall, that the pipe just blew, one of the joints, say, just right. Burst off and exploded in the wall. This would be much harder to fix, but I would think it's still fixable.
I was thinking it kind of like the power system getting like a power surge and the wires melting in the walls. Perhaps starting a fire and burning down the whole house.
Yeah, that might be a little bit better of an analogy, yeah.
And then, like, you'd have to basically replace the whole wiring system in the house. Yeah, you can't, and that's...
Structure.
Right.
So maybe you can't do that. I like that. This is a good explanation. That works for me.
As opposed to severing is kind of like just throwing pulling a fuse.
Yeah, and it's surgical, and that's meant like a skilled technician went in there and took something apart for the purpose of it being put back together again, maybe one day, as opposed to a violent accident, which is much harder to fix than, if you're said, tell your plumber that you don't want this bathroom to work for the next year because your family's going to be out of the country or something. They can shut it off and then turn it back on later.
Also, it's a lot easier not to kill somebody if you just do a small cut, as opposed to just if you burn them out.
Yeah. Yeah, so here I have, beginning at, there's something torn or cut, Nynaeve muttered. Nynaeve's, I have a little read for Nynaeve there. And as she's examining the two women, kind of feeling around in their brain is how I imagine it.
The only comment I had before that was about the ADOM and the absolutely identical matrices, which is something that Elaine said. And that's where I feel like perhaps her education helps her understand the very technical and engineering aspects of the ADOM.
It could.
And one of the reasons I really love Elaine is I do feel like she's a bit of an engineer tinkerer. Like, she does have a bit of a mad scientist in her. It gets cut off a little bit when she gets pregnant. I don't really love the way Brandon Sanderson writes Elaine. It's a whole nother discussion we'll get to. But, like, her beforehand, she's a healer. She likes to tinker with animals. She likes to tinker with, little equipment. And she likes the dragoons. Like, she's a bit of an engineer, on a bit of a socially awkward engineer.
I hear you. She's had lots of resources throughout her life, and Elaine often lacks the ability to, I think, question herself and her own abilities really well. And sometimes that works out for her great, and sometimes not.
Right. She doesn't know she can't do that.
She will try. She will try, yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, I support. I want to be positive about. Like, I appreciate that characteristic in people, that regardless of whether or not it's very realistic, this person will try to solve this problem,
I just feel like I have to quote Dave Chappelle. I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I couldn't do
that. Yeah, I can see his face. I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I couldn't do that. And he leans over to his black friend and, elbows him.
He's like, I didn't know I could do that. That's Elaine to a T.
Did you watch his newest stand-up? Came out like a year ago. Oh, it was dark. It was dark.
Yeah. I remember being like, I'm not super...
There were some moments where I was like,
powerful.
wow, he's really hammering some... some
that's right.
Seriously, yeah, he's really going for it.
Yeah. He tore into some assholes. There's no doubt about it.
I liked it. I like him as a character and a person. I don't know what he's like in real life. I only know his stage personality, but I like him. I like the
that
way
show.
He makes fun of the world.
Was dark. It was dark. There was definitely a different, like a darker side of his humor where it was like
I liked it,
some stuff
but it was dark, and
I
was kind of like, oh, this is Dave Chappelle as a 40-something dad. Talking about the world. Like, it's not that funny anymore. Like, it's just messed up.
It's like, oh, yeah, that's so fucking true.
Well,
yeah,
I really liked it.
He's turning into George Carlin slowly.
Yes.
That's basically what it's like.
Like that, where
Yeah.
I feel like George Carlin's later stuff was like, oh, shit, that's true and uncomfortable.
And you're laughing because otherwise you'd be crying.
And it's more of a monologue than it's more of a show about thinking. Yeah. Observation. I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess we'll start the chapter now. There's something torn or cut, Nynaeve muttered, wiping absently at the sweat on her face. It was just a vague impression, barely there at all, but it was also the first time she had sensed more than emptiness. It could be imagination and the desperate wanting to find something, anything. Severing, the woman on the stool said. That was what it was called, what you name stilling for women and gentling for men. 3 heads swiveled toward her. 3 sets of eyes glared with fury. Swan and Leanne had been Aes Sedai until they were stilled during the coup in the White Tower that had put Elaida on the Amerlin seat. Stilled. A word to cause shudders. Never to channel again, but always to remember and know the loss. Always to sense the true source and know you could never touch it again. Stilling could not be healed any more than death. That was what everyone believed, anyway. But in Nynaeve's opinion, the one power should be able to heal anything short of death. If you have something useful to add, Merrigan, she said sharply, then say it. If not, keep quiet. Merrigan shrank back against the wall, eyes glittering and fixed on Nynaeve. Fear and hate rolled through the bracelet, but they always did to one degree or another. Captains seldom loved their captors, even, perhaps especially, when they knew they deserved captivity, and worse. The problem was that Merrigan also said severing, stilling, could not be healed. Oh, she was full of claims that anything else except death could be healed in the Age of Legends. That what the Yellow Ajah called healing now was only the crudest, hasty battlefield work. But try to pin her down on specifics, on even a hint of how, and you found nothing there. Merrigan knew as much about healing as Nynaeve did about blacksmithing, which was that you stuck metal in hot coals and hit it with a hammer. Certainly not enough to make a horseshoe, or heal much beyond a bruise. Twisting around in her chair, Nynaeve studied Swan and Leanne. Days of this, whenever she could pry them away from their work, and so far she had learned nothing. Suddenly, she realized she was turning the bracelet on her wrist. Whatever the game, she hated being linked to the woman. The intimacy made her skin crawl. At least I might learn something, she thought, and it couldn't fail any worse than everything else has. Carefully, she undid the bracelet. The clasp was impossible to find unless you knew how, and handed it to Swan. Put this on. Losing the power was bitter, but this had to be done, and losing the waves of emotion was like taking a bath. Merrigan's eyes followed the narrow length of silver as if hypnotized. Why? Swan demanded. You tell me this thing only works. Just put it on, Swan. Swan eyed her stubbornly for a moment. Light, but the woman could be obstinate. Before closing the bracelet around her wrist, a look of wonder came onto her face immediately. Then her eyes narrowed at Merrigan. She hates us, but I knew that. And there's fear and shock. Not a glimmer on her face, but she's shocked to her toes. I don't think she believed I could use this thing, either. Merrigan shifted uneasily. So far, only 2 who knew about her could use the bracelet. 4 would give more chances for questions. On the surface she seemed to be cooperating fully, but how much was she hiding? As much as she could, Nynaeve was sure. With a sigh, Swan shook her head. And I cannot. I should be able to touch the source through her, isn't that right? Well, I can't. A grunter could climb trees first. I've been stilled, and that is that. How do you get this thing off? She fumbled at the bracelet. How do you bloody get it off? Gently, Nynaeve laid a hand on over Swan's on the bracelet. Don't you see? The bracelet won't work for a woman who can't channel any more than the necklace would work on her. If I put either one on one of the cooks, it would be no more than a pretty piece for her. Cooks or no cooks, Swan said flatly. I cannot channel. I've been stilled. But there is something there to be healed, Nynaeve insisted, or you'd feel nothing through the bracelet. Swan jerked her arm free and stuck her wrist out. Take it off. She right, though.
She's very right. Because she definitely has, this says, hey, there's something going on there. Anyone else would have, it would just be a piece of jewelry. It's
like there's a clear cap on the other side of that pipe, and she can see the water. She can even feel the warmth from the heat of the water. She just needs to pull the cap off and connect the two pipes.
There's some questions about what Mogedian's lying about. Do you think Mogedian sucks at healing, or do you think she's lying about that?
I don't think she sucks that bad. I think she's a liar. I think that she, well, I know she's a liar, but in this particular regard, I think that she could at the very least coach Nynaeve a bit better on the theory of it, even if it's something that she can't do. You know what I mean? Like, if someone brought me to the past from my time and tried to grill all the information about making steel out of me, I couldn't do it, but I know enough. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, you've got to collect these particular elements and you've got to get them at this particular heat, and I could coach someone through it. If they were willing to try hard enough and keep making runs at it, we could probably make some steel eventually. Same thing.
Fair enough, but I really do think that Mogedian has such little regard for other people that she probably doesn't give two shits about trying to learn to heal.
Oh, I think maybe she doesn't, but I think that she could offer more help than she is, you know?
Oh, sure. She's being deliberately stubborn. Yeah. And teaching him how to detect a male channeler, like, is not... that's not a legitimate way to go about doing it.
You know, I think that she would have a good understanding of how others can do this, even if she doesn't have a talent for it. Just like I think I could explain to someone how to make steel, even if I couldn't necessarily do it myself. There's some information I could offer, even though I know nothing about this, really, you know?
Sure. I think Jordan's trying to make a point here that no matter how intelligent and smart and aware, and they, you know, I can realize if I go back in time that the healing they're doing is terrible, but I don't know how to make penicillin.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I would be in just as, I don't know human body, I don't know anatomy or anything. I couldn't teach anyone anything about healing, even though I could go back in time and be like, your healing sucks. You know, and like, I feel like that's where Mogedian is to be like, yeah, I mean, we had like penicillin, you know, and she knows that she's the basic things that like, yeah, you can use all 5 powers, but like this, you know, that's all she knows, basically.
I hear that. Be like, I don't know, you put iron and some carbon in a thing and you heat it to really hot. I'm a bartender. Do you want a margarita?
Right. Exactly.
It'd give you exacting recipe for that.
I can show you how to change your appearance, hide your ability to channel. I'm really good at hiding, and I can teach you how to do that. But I'm not going to be able to teach you how to like heal somebody. I never cared about that. So, and same thing with Asmodean. Asmodean never could heal anything more than a bruise. It's not that he like isn't powerful. It's not that he doesn't have the ability to learn. He just doesn't care. It doesn't bring him power.
Yeah, I think probably that partly. But we also see where some other characters like is it Elaine whose ability to heal is awful, and Egwene as well, right?
I think so. Yeah, because Egwene's just a glass cannon. She just destroys things really good.
Yeah, and she has her own talents. You connected to the metals. I think Elaine is a bit connected to the metals as well, but in a little bit of a different way.
More in the Teragriel way.
Yeah, Egwene's more earth. Skylake says Egwene can heal a little better than Elaine, but only a little. That sounds about right. What I was thinking. And we see Elaine heal Nynaeve's black eye. That's right, and she mentions that that's the best she can do. That's about all she can do with her ability.
Healing seems to be one of those things that's very binary in people. They either seem to be able to do it or not. Moraine was an excellent healer, even though that in no way was her specialty.
Yeah, she seemed to think she was bad at it, but I don't recall seeing her try to do anything that she didn't accomplish. Although I guess not trying when she knew she couldn't accomplish it is part of that. But
so back to the book, they hand the bracelet to Leanne, and she's like, yeah, pretty much the same thing. She tries to make Moghedien feel something and fails. So obviously there's no control in the bracelet whatsoever.
That's right.
Without the ability to channel. Even though she has a passive recepting, she can't actively project feelings onto Moghedien.
Right, so it's like they can sense the warm water in the pipe. I'm just going to beat this analogy to death, but they can't move the water anywhere. They can't make the water do anything. They can't wash anything with it. They just know that it's there. Which, and I don't know if I said this out loud directly yet, but Nynaeve's little test earlier proved that, because a non-channeler wouldn't be able to sense anything at all. But these two women can.
And then in comes Elaine, pissed as all hell.
Elaine bangs the door open. They think it's Shiriam, and everybody's nervous because nobody's supposed to be in this room doing what they're doing right now.
Moghedien has the glow around her because they're using her to channel.
Right. That's even worse. But Elaine bursts in saying the Saladar Six are sending an embassy to Camelin, and they're refusing to let her go. And Shiriam even forbade her to speak of it, which is driving Elaine nuts.
So this is my question. How obviously she wants to go to Rand, she wants to become the Queen of Andor, and I think this would be great timing, right? Like now would have been a good time for her to take the throne and become helpful to Rand. Do you think that the Black Ajah is keeping her away from ruling Camelin just to keep it in chaos?
No.
Or do you think that's just they don't want to give up an asset?
I think that if the Saladar Six thought that they could install her on the throne at this point, they would. But they would probably only ever do that if they thought that they had control of Elaine. And they won't believe they have control of Elaine until she's at least oath-rotted. Gosh, she's only been studying for like a year. They don't have enough of a hold on her to let her go be the queen of a land in their name. if that wasn't implied, because that's what I meant. Yeah, I don't think they would let her go unless they felt they had good control over her, which no one has control of anything right now. They want her there eventually, though.
And this is the reaction to the news of the death of Ravine and the disappearance of Queen Morghese at the end of the last book. We get some word about the rebellion in the West, which we know is Perrin.
Right.
Declaring himself the Lord of the Two Rivers. That's, Morghese heard about that, and that's what spurred her to flee, and obviously Elaine has heard the same rumors.
Okay, I'll read this bit. Do you know what they're doing? They're sending an embassy to Camelin, and they refuse to let me go. Shiriam forbade me to mention it again, forbade me to even speak of it. Did you never learn to knock, Elaine? Nynaeve says. I thought you were Shiriam. To her credit, Elaine blushed and apologized immediately, then spoiled it by adding, but I don't see why you were so goosey. Brigida is still outside, and you know she would warn you if anyone else came close. Nynaeve, they must let me go. They must do nothing of the kind, Swan said gruffly. I'm skipping to the next dialogue. Swan did not allow Elaine a word. Do you think Shiriam, or any of the others, will let the daughter heir of Andor fall into the hands of the Dragon Reborn, with your mother dead? I don't believe that, Elaine snapped. You don't believe Rand killed her, Swan went on relentlessly, and that's a different thing. I don't either, but if Morghese were alive, she would come forward and acknowledge him the Dragon Reborn, or, if she believed him a false dragon, in spite of the proof, she'd be organizing resistance. None of my eyes and ears have heard a whisper of either. Not just in Andor, but not here in Altara, and not in Murundi. They have, Elaine forced in. There's rebellion in the West. Against Morghese. Against. If it's not a rumor, too. Swan's voice was flat and as plain as a board. Your mother is dead, girl. Best to admit as much and get your weeping done. Wow.
It's a little rough. I mean...
But at the same time, it's like Swan is talking sense and Elaine is not. It's like, they must let me go, Nynaeve. And Swan's like, no, they must. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything at all.
Don't have to and probably won't. They will do exactly what they want to do, and you have very little say in what happens.
And pack you into a sack and throw you into the ocean if that's what they want to do. If you think they're going to accede to your demands, my lady, you can just take that ring off your finger because you're getting demoted to novice. Not getting anywhere near a palace for 100 years if you keep acting like that.
And you can do that for 100 years because people live that long. It's crazy. You really can punish people for like generations and have grudges for generations.
Yeah, stuff like that happens. I always took a lot of heart and warmth out of the story. Cadsuane is sending like her great-great-grandchildren to college or something. Not college, but you know, the equivalent. She sends them to be educated and whatever. And they don't even really know who she is. Because she's never met these kids and she's like 5 generations back. She's like their great-great-grandma. You know? She just pays for every kid of her kin's education.
Like Interview with the Vampire had a similar sort of theme to it. I think there was one vampire who had a child before she was turned, and then like followed her family through the generations and like took care of them, and like the family grew to be like this big prominent family because they had this like vampire patron.
Is that an Interview with a Vampire?
Well, it's in the series. What Anne Rice writes like 15 books in that series. Yeah.
No, that rings a bell. I read like all those in high school, but I don't remember the plot very well anymore.
It gets pretty intricate, and it spans quite a bit of time. And Lestat is a bit of a crazy superhero, anti-hero who takes the main stage and does all sorts of crazy shit for really, really crazy reasons. But like, yeah, at some point he ends up like waking up the ancient vampires of Egypt and becoming her lover and taking over his, and like it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
The Anne Rice series?
But Anne Rice writes a good freaking novel. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't hear people talk about those much anymore, but I remember them being real big in high school.
I think she did go off the deep end. Like, I think after a certain point, they did start to get bad.
Possibly.
Like, like any author, like you keep writing books, eventually you run out of things to say.
I'm going to read a little bit more to put us back on track. Whether my mother is alive or not, my place is in Camelin. Now, I am daughter heir. Swan's loud snort made Nynaeve jump. You've been accepted long enough to know better.
You don't get your own choices.
Elaine had as much potential as had been seen in 1,000 years. Not as much as Nynaeve, if she ever learned to channel at will, but still enough to make an Aes Sedai eyes light up. Elaine's nose wrinkled. She knew very well that if she had already been on the Lion Throne, the Aes Sedai would have gotten her away for training, by asking if possible, by stuffing her into a barrel if necessary. And she opened her mouth, but Swan did not even slow down. True, they'd not mind you taking the throne sooner or later. There hasn't been a queen who was openly Aes Sedai in far too long. But they won't let you go until you're a full sister. And even then, because you are daughter heir, and will be queen soon, they won't let you near the Dragon Bloody Reborn until they know how far they can trust him, especially since this amnesty of his. Her mouth twisted sourly around the word, and Leanne grimaced. Just a little more of the temperature of the room and how very wrong Elaine is.
Also, they've heard of Rand's amnesty of the Black Tower, and they are not happy about that.
No.
Not in the slightest. It's a big theme again is the antithesis between the men and the women, the White Tower and the Black Tower. And it's only until they start working together that they really succeed.
It does. It does put a bad taste in their mouths. Although, as much as I love the Light, Aes Sedai, and everything, it's sort of enjoyable to watch them have to put their foot in their mouths a little in some of these situations because they're otherwise so pushy, like Swan is being with Elaine here, and just telling her how the world is. That Part of me is quite pleased at how pissed they are when the male channelers are given this amnesty and they're never able to do anything about it. Because
yeah. It's fun to tweak their nose a little bit, as Rand says at one point.
Yeah. Maybe that's just the American in me. We like seeing authority figures fail.
I think it's hard not to read a little bit from Rand's perspective and just be like, man, the Aes Sedai treat him like crap. It's about time they get their comeuppance. Them getting their comeuppance is fun. It's fun. It's just fun to watch the Aes Sedai suffer a little bit, because it's like they're so arrogant. They're so, as a group, I mean, there's certainly exceptions, but they are, the White Tower is an ivory tower in all the worst ways.
Yeah, it's literally an ivory tower. I mean, I'm sure that that's on purpose. They are sort of supposed to represent people who, although they're very clever and they're the best educated and most, wealthy and powerful people in the world, they live in a tower, in an ivory tower, and are often very disconnected from the world.
Deliberately by the Black Tower.
Yeah, even someone like Swan, who you would think is someone who's relatively grounded and in touch, still has this, these ideas about the proper way to do things and all that.
I love Leanne's line here where Elaine's like, I will go to him, I'll do it if I have to, and Leanne's like, yeah, so nice of you to sacrifice yourself and go hang out with your lover. Elaine's expression did not change, yet she colored furiously. It's about 2 paragraphs later. I love that little interaction. Leanne knows the ways of the heart, and she is definitely calling Elaine out a little bit there. And it's like, maybe this isn't your duty. Maybe you're trying to follow your heart and not your brain. And like that little bit, I think it does. It kind of shuts her up a little bit, because it's like,
she just wants to go to Camelin because it's her home.
Yeah, and her boyfriend's there.
Yes. But guys, my boyfriend's at my house. Just like, yo, we have stuff to do right now.
You're in college. It's a long-distance relationship. Wait for winter break. You'll see him then. In the meantime, suck it up and get your homework done.
Your boyfriend's busy conquering the world. Can you please learn how to shoot fire out of your hands? Thank you. Yeah. Her and Rand and Egwene and Mat and Perrin. She had wanted for so long to make Moraine pay for what she had done to them, that losing her was like losing a piece of herself. But Moraine was dead in Cairhien, taking Lanfear with her. She was fast becoming a legend among the Aes Sedai here, the only Aes Sedai to have killed one of the Forsaken, much less 2.
And I think what we're seeing there is the beginning of Nynaeve's sort of mental journey to come around to the person who hugs Moraine when she sees her next, as opposed to tries to.
Yeah.
It's like, this person's a legend, she sacrificed so much, and it's only with her sacrifice that she's able to realize Moraine really wasn't in it for herself.
Including her own life. Yeah.
Like, she was in it just to save Rand, which is, of course, what Nynaeve is in it for as well. Realizing, I think, that they have a shared goal, and as Nynaeve becomes more and more Aes Sedai, she realizes some of the methods that Moraine has to use are also methods that she has to use, that she, like, all of a sudden is like, oh, you were doing everything you could for us.
Right.
And I love you for it. As opposed to, I want revenge for taking these people out of the 2 rivers.
I feel like that's very much a kind of, I don't want to say an adolescent arc, but, realizing, I feel like this is a story that's often told where an adolescent has trouble with their elders at, certain points in their lives, and you go out into the world and do your own thing, and when you turn back around and kind of review the past, you realize that the elders in your life are these authority figures, like Moraine for Nynaeve was just doing the best that she could, and the best that anyone can do is really not much better than what the standard human being can do. Nobody's really that exceptional. Nobody's really a superhero. Moraine is a human being, and she did her best, and her best included subtle manipulation and a bit of withholding the truth, and but it was all that she knew how to do.
And failing occasionally.
Yeah, particularly while literally being chased by monsters with bloody knives, Like, she did a great job under the circumstances. Yeah, Devin, it's true. Literally, no one is a superhero. Okay, well, I guess you can count Bella, but she's the only one.
Not really a person, more, horses are the obvious exception.
Super horso.
Yeah, no people are superheroes.
Behooved.
Oh, God. Can I just say nay to those kinds of jokes?
Nay.
Are we done horsing around? Shall we tie this one to the post and get Eon up out of here?
Hang our hats and... All right.
But yeah, I don't have a lot until Min's going. So we noticed that Min is heading to Rand here. So he sends Avienda away, and Min goes to meet him. So we have the third sort of woman, because he spent a little bit of time with Elaine, then a fair amount of time with Avienda, and now he gets to spend a bunch of time with Min.
When Swan, Nynaeve, Elaine, and Leanne are talking about the contingent of Aes Sedai sent to meet Rand, or sent to seek out Rand and speak with him, they find out Nynaeve had been studying Swan, and now something popped into her head. You knew all about this embassy, or whatever it is, didn't you? How many are they sending, Swan? Nynaeve asks. Elaine gasped. Plainly she had not thought of this. That showed how upset she was. Swan denied nothing. I'm skipping ahead a little bit to get to the dialogue. 9. Enough to do honor to the Dragon Reborn. Fish guts. An embassy to a king is seldom more than 3, but not enough to frighten him, if he's learned enough to be frightened. You had better hope he has, Elaine said coldly. If he hasn't, then 9 may be 8 too many. Implying that, if you don't warn this kid and you send this great group of Aes Sedai, then and you're speculating about what he even understands about the number of Aes Sedai being sent to him, then 1 he may see as a threat. So you had better hope he understands that 13 is the actual threat.
Well, and the problem is this does become a group of 13, because these 9 are joined by the 2 Aes Sedai who were sent to find him in the Waste, the one that Suan sent. They actually turn around and go back to Camelin to find him. So that's Bera Harkin and Karina Nachaman.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, whoop, no, he's not in the Waste anymore. Let's go find him. And so they end up joining up with the group of 9. That becomes 11. And then Varen and Alana show up, and all of a sudden 11 become 13.
Yeah.
And that's when he flees. So, here's Suan saying, you better be careful to make sure he knows that 13 is the threat, or to make sure that you're not threatening him.
And Elaine corrects her and says, you had better make sure you understand what the way he understands what a threat is, before you do whatever you do or don't believe that is threatening to him. How do you know what the hell you're talking about? You know what a threat is, but does he? He might see 1 as a dangerous threat. Furthermore, 9 is a dangerous threat. I wouldn't, if this were me sending this delegation, I would not send 9. I would send 2 or 3. Maybe 2 or 3. 9 is probably enough to shield him and take him anyway. 13 is enough to turn somebody, but that's not what the Aes Sedai here are going to be trying to do anyway. 13 it's a symbolic number. 13 Aes Sedai can shield any man, no matter how powerful he is or how aided he is by Terengrial or whatever. But realistically, 5, 6, 7 Aes Sedai should be able to shield Rand, working together.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, are you going to take him by surprise? Is he already channeling? Is he have an Angreal?
It would have to be by surprise, yeah.
I'd like to make the point that none of the 9 are Black Ajah.
Wow. That's unlikely.
Until Varen pops in. Varen's the only black, and you can argue how black she is in the group of 13.
Yeah.
Which is highly unlikely given the numbers that we know are anywhere from
just the general statistics, like 5 of them should be Black Aja or something. Like slightly more than a third.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, none of the first 9. Because the only one that's dead is Feldrin by the end of the series, and she died fighting for the light. And obviously all the rest of the Black were killed. So they would be listed as dead.
Painted Dead is wondering if that's intentional, that no members of the Black Aja were sent to meet with Rand. I would like to think so, but I can't imagine how or why. What do you think? It looks intentional just because it's so unlikely. And Shiriam is black.
And Shiriam is black, and she was one of the ones who sent the delegation, yeah, so...
Who set up this delegation. She's kind of in charge.
It's a curiosity. It's something that I've thought about a little bit. And what I'm assuming is that she thought that they would be useless either way, and she wanted her black sisters in Saladar to control things. Also, the other thought that I had is perhaps Shuriam doesn't know any black sisters. You know, we know they only have their hearts, which is 3, which means there's only 2 other ones. Chances are one of them's not around, and the other one's got left back in the tower, right? So it's possible that Shuriam just, as not like the head of the Black or anything, she takes orders like everybody else. Maybe she wasn't able to get someone black on the embassy.
Yeah.
Shuriam, despite her position of power and privilege, seems to be pretty low on the totem pole. People pretty much just give her orders. She might be powerful in real life, but she's kind of a pathetic dark friend.
Shuriam joined the Black because this was like, you know, it's like a sorority that you can join, and like you get together and do debauched stuff with a bunch of ladies on the weekends, but then during the week, like, they're helping you network and getting you interviews, and you know, that I feel like that's what it was for Shiriam. Like, yeah, this is kind of dirty, and it's not necessarily moral, but it's not really.
It's the frat in the college. It's like you join, you do a few bong hits, maybe you do a few illegal drugs. But, at the end of the day, you're networking.
Well, yeah, it's not the end of the world, and everybody kind of understands. Like, yeah, you went to college, you did a little coke, smoked a little pot. Like, okay, it's all right. You're a grown-up now. Move forward.
And then the dealer shows up and goes, okay, so you've now committed to deal drugs for me for the rest of your life. Congratulations. And you're like, wait,
what?
No, that's not what I signed up for. It's like, you smoke... You did the drugs. It's either that or I'm sending you to jail for the rest of your life. And you're like, oh, shit.
Exactly. I've heard similar stories before. And that's how I ended up spending 4 years in the Marines. It's for real, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I've heard those stories, too.
And that's how I ended up spending 4 years in the Marines. It's a good analogy, though. Okay, turning the page. Swan and Leanne leave. Nynaeve's a little pissed, but everybody kind of shows their cards in this scene, and it's like, yeah, well, Swan and Leanne are going to help you out when they want to, and you're going to help them out when you want to, and that's how this works now.
And I think it's funny here, she dismisses Logain's help, even though he's the one she figures out healing on. She's like, he's useless. I'll never.
He creeps me out. I don't like him. Yeah. She doesn't want to hang out with him.
And we get a fair amount about, time must have passed between the books, because literally last time we saw them was in the dream. Moghedien was passed out. We didn't see them make the bracelet or the collar in the last book. So time has passed that they have had time to capture Moghedien and learn from her and pass those things on as discoveries of their own. So it has to have been a couple of weeks at least since the battle.
And to clarify, folks, because I'm just anticipating this question, we saw Nynaeve make the Adam in the dream, and then they drug Moghedien in the dream, bring her out of the dream, passed out, make a Terangrial IRL, and put it on her while she's still passed out. That's how. But we don't see that second part on screen.
Yeah, that happens between books.
Yeah.
And that Terangrial, that Adam, was made from the silver of Brigida's silver arrow.
Yes, which I was a little bit interested, a slightly interesting factoid for nerds, that was mostly silver, not 100% silver. We learned somewhere in some throwaway line, I can't remember exactly. I think it might be in this chapter, or prologue, I guess. I believe it's from Nynaeve's perspective. She mentions it in one line, that it's like mostly silver, almost entirely silver, I think she says. I just thought that was interesting that it wasn't 100%.
I thought maybe like except for the feathers or something like that.
Oh, perhaps. I didn't even think of that, but I thought, probably, even pure like silver bullion is only like 97.3% silver, There's little
Sure,
impurities in there.
You're thinking it's an alloy.
Of some kind, yeah.
Of some kind. I was thinking it was all silver except for like the head, or except for like, or maybe had a core. Or
that could be it too. I
keep
wasn't
it
thinking
stiff,
that,
yeah.
but you wouldn't want a silver knife, or you wouldn't want a silver blade end. It wouldn't hold up very well.
It would squish. That wouldn't have much piercing power at all.
I don't think so. I don't know. I've never seen a tool made of silver like that. Probably for a reason.
Really expensive when you don't pull it out of the dream.
I guess the next thing I have a little read as we enter Elaine's perspective. Not too long.
I thought it was clever that they can pass on little bits of Dark Friend plots through Suan's eyes and ears, in quotes. That was a clever little thing, I think, that I've overlooked before. That they were able to question Moghedien about, like, what do you know about what's going on in the Dark Friend stuff?
And they were able to double check her?
Well, I mean, at least pass it on like it's knowledge. Then,
Gotcha.
That way it could be compared. The Saladar 6 or whoever, the Aes Sedai, could at least have that knowledge and decide whether or not it was legit.
Oh, yeah, and Swan can presumably present it as, I got a letter from so-and-so, and it said this.
We get confirmation from Moghedien that the Dark One is responsible for the weather.
Uh-huh.
And that's something we haven't really dug into yet, but the weather is, we sort of saw that at the end of Fires of Heaven, but now it's super confirmed that the weather is entirely just. We are in winter, and it is still summer hot. So bad things are happening.
Yeah. I tried to point it out through Fires of Heaven whenever there's that little hint, like, it should be cooling off by now. It should be cooling off by now.
A very warm autumn.
But at this point, it's just like, okay, something's way wrong now.
It's November and 90 degrees outside.
This isn't just a warm fall, yeah.
Right. And really, like, that's true until we got a couple of more books before they get the Bowl of the Winds. They have to go. That's basically what gets them out of Saladar, is they head down to Abu Dar to find the Bowl of the Winds and break the heat.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, that's the next big plot that they have to solve, is this heat. So just bringing it up and being like, yes, everything's hot.
Read us in this bit of Elaine here. And I kind of just want to add, Nynaeve kind of settles in to continue questioning Moghedien after everyone has left. So she's sitting there alone for a long period of time. Elaine did not hesitate once she was outside, only waved to Brigida and went on. Brigida, her golden hair in an intricate waist-long braid, was playing with two small boys while she kept watch in the narrow alley, her bow propped against a leaning fence beside her, or trying to play with them. Jarl and Sev stared at the woman in her odd wide yellow trousers and short dark coat, but they showed no more reaction than that. They never did, and they never spoke. They were supposed to be Marrigan's children. Brigida was happy playing with them, and a touch sad. She always liked playing with children, especially little boys, and she always felt that way when she did. Elaine knew it as well as she knew her own feelings. If she had thought Moghedien had anything to do with their condition, but the woman claimed they were as they had been when she picked them up for her disguise in Gildan, orphans in the street, and some of the Yellow Sisters said they had simply seen too much in the riots in Samara. Elaine could believe it from what she herself had encountered there. The Yellow Sisters said time and care would help them. Elaine hoped it was so. She hoped she was not allowing the one responsible to escape justice. She did not want to think about Moghedien now. Her mother. No, she definitely did not want to think about her. Min and Rand. There had to be some way to handle this. Barely seeing Brigida's return nod, she hurried up the alley and out onto the main street of Saladar beneath a cloudless, broiling midday sky. For years, Saladar had stood abandoned, before Aes Sedai fleeing Elaita's coup began to gather there. But now fresh thatch topped the houses, most of which showed considerable new repairs and patches, and 3 large stone buildings that had been inns. One, The largest was called the Little Tower by some. That was where the hall met. Only what was necessary had been done, of course. Cracked glass filled many windows, or none. More important matters were afoot than repointing stonework or painting. The dirt streets were filled to bursting, not just with Aes Sedai, of course, but accepted in banded dresses and scurrying novices in pure white, warders moving with deadly grace of leopards, whether lean or bulky, servants who had followed Aes Sedai from the tower, even a few children, and soldiers. The hall here was preparing to enforce its claims against Elaida by arms, if necessary, just as soon as they chose a true Amerlin seat. The distant clang of hammers, cutting through the crowd's murmur from forges outside the village, spoke of horses being shod, armor being mended. A square-faced man, his dark hair heavy with gray, went riding slowly down the street in a bluff-colored coat and battered breastplate. Picking his way through the crowd, he eyed marching clusters of men with long pikes on their shoulders, or bows. Gareth Bryn had agreed to recruit and lead the Saladar Hall's army, though Elaine wished she knew the full how and why. Something to do with Swan and Leanne, though what, she could not imagine, since he ran both women ragged, especially Swan, fulfilling some oath Elaine did not have the straight of either. Just that Swan complained bitterly about having to keep his room and his clothes clean, on top of her other duties. She complained, but she did it. It must have been a strong oath.
And or she loves Gareth Bryn.
Yeah, in the end, I want to believe that some part in the back of Swan's head is like, well, I'll polish your boots if I get to hang out with you for an hour every evening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She does not admit that to herself for a long time.
Nah, yeah, I think it's there. I think she likes it before she realizes she likes it.
Definitely. Honestly, I think that's part of the reason she gives him such a strong oath in the very beginning.
That she wants him to have the ability to come collect her?
Yeah, absolutely. She's challenging him. That's absolutely a challenge.
I think so. I think that's at least partly true, and whenever I hear someone say, I don't get the Swan Bryn thing, I always think, I feel like I really do get it. And I feel like Swan has, because she's been a leader of powerful people for so long, she can see this in someone else and respect it. I think they have a mutual respect for each other in the beginning in the way that Nynaeve and Lan do.
Yes.
It's kind of a bit similar. And then they challenge each other several times and both rise to the occasion. And I feel like Nynaeve and Lan are just like Swan and Bryn in that way. Nynaeve and Lan are like young Swan and Bryn. Although I guess Lan's not that young, huh? He's probably only a little younger than Bryn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar
Yeah.
age? How old is Lan?
We always get a little confused. I want to say 45-ish, because I want to say he's just a little bit older than Moraine. Yeah.
The older end of young. That's what I always think.
About to be an old man, but not yet, if that makes sense.
What did you call me, Bambi?
We do have a quote here about Moghedien and the kids that we base a lot of our, she claims to not have hurt the kids, and we kind of take her word for that.
Just like, that's what Moghedien says, yeah. It just seems weak to me.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where she probably would be like, if she had done something, to be like, oh yeah, I put some compulsion on him. Like, I don't think she'd lie about that, honestly. I don't think she'd find a reason to lie about it. She doesn't find them important enough. They were just props,
Yeah, I can see that to some bit. Like, she's Moghedien. If she admitted, or if she just said, like, yeah, I compelled 2 small children, like, just like I'm, going to tear your mind into pieces once I break through these bonds.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much what I expect from her, So that's why I take her word for it.
Be terribly out of character. Right, I guess. Why would she lie, I guess?
So then Elaine runs into Anya and Janya. That's definitely unfortunately similar namings.
It's people. I mean, I think it's Anaya and Janya, or Janya.
Shh. Yeah, so Anaya, and I think I say this every time, but Anaya is the head of the Blue Ajah, so she has some authority.
Yeah, or speculated head of the blue, right?
It's as confirmed as it gets. I forget exactly where, but like it's never stated. But
Yeah.
I think someone else is like, yeah, this is definitely her. I don't have anything real interesting tidbits about Janya.
Johnny is chatty, and she praises Elaine a lot because she and Nynaeve have apparently discovered a weave for wrapping yourself in light to become invisible. It's the first thing she mentions it. You're making great strides. The first to make a terangrial since the breaking. Incredibly remarkable. Inverting weaves. Hiding your ability to channel in general, which is slightly different.
And obviously they don't share the ones with the Saladar folks that they use to actually hide Moghedian from them.
Right.
They're like, yeah, we don't want them to know how to
That's
do
right.
that.
They don't give up the secret of how to hide your ability to disguise yourself, or your ability to channel, rather.
To channel, right. I think do they give up Mask of Mirrors? Because I think they do, because like that's like
I think they give Mask of Mirrors, but they make...
Because Moraine had it.
Yeah, they
right?
show how to make yourself invisible if you stand still, is what Janya says.
Right, but if you move, it becomes Ripley.
And there's a few things that they had discovered. Ooh, Elaine invented the plain green disc that allowed someone not strong enough to work the invisibility trick to do it, basically.
Oh. Is that a totally new invented terangrial?
I believe so. Because starting here, and I was just reading through to Janya's praising, and Anaya is a little bit too, but she's a lot more measured. But Janya's praising Elaine, saying, like, I can't believe these great strides you've made. You and Nynaeve will be Aes Sedai in no time if you keep going at your studies like this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning of this paragraph, it starts, I haven't done as well as I might with the terangrial in Aes Sedai, Elaine says. The first had been the bracelet and necklace, a fact kept well hidden, needless to say, but they were an altered copy of a nasty invention. The plain green disc that allowed someone not strong enough to work the invisibility trick, not many were, had been her idea from the first. She had no Angreal or Sa-Angreal to study, so they had been impossible to make so far. And then she kind of goes on talking about she has trouble making anything that, if she can copy things easily, but inventing something, that's a whole different ballgame. Not that I'm saying she can't or is incapable, but it's just much, much harder. If she has something to look at.
Sure, which I think is true.
Sure.
If you've ever written code, it's a lot easier to copy and paste something than it is to write your own.
Oh, exactly. It's true for any number of things.
Yeah.
So all the praising, Anaya kind of trying to wrangle Janya in, saying like, okay, don't fill her head up too much.
So here's my question. After Nynaeve shows the cool way of healing, a lot of people are able to figure that out. Why is nobody else able to figure out how to copy terangrial? It seems like people would be like, hey, show us how to do this, and they would figure out how to make more copies. As far as I know, she's the only one who ever copies a terangrial.
I think that may be the case. We do see, I guess we see Egg later only make Quendiar. That's not Angreal. But she never makes an Angreal, does she? Egwene?
Not as far as I know.
Yeah.
Just
the Quendiar stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not, I believe, a terangrial.
No.
Now, terangrials are hard like Quendiar. But the difference is, I believe terangrials, Balefire destroys terangrials, but doesn't destroy Quendiar. Is that correct? I don't know if we ever see a terangrial get Balefired.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, I don't know.
Because we see Quendiar get Balefired, right? In the
and that doesn't do anything.
In Tanchico, they like balefire the museum, and like the Quendiar just drops out of the balefire. It's like tink, 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 tink. But I don't know if the same would be true of terangrial, and I think that is different. I think that terangrial are not made of Quendiar and would be able to be broken. And we do see, for example, Rand breaks the male half of the Choden Call, which is a terangrial, just by directing power down through it, which wouldn't work against a Quendiar piece.
He destroys it on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that was made out of Quendiar, he wouldn't have been able to just destroy it with one power.
So there's your answer, Devico. I'm glad that came up right away. Yeah, I think Elaine is the only person we ever see make one. Oh, I was going to say, a second ago I was thinking, I have a pet theory in my head that our Emmonsfielders, basically our young heroes in this series, are often show themselves to be capable to do things that are considered lost or impossible or this, that, or the other thing. I think that they do them so easily because they believe that they can and they must.
There's some of that, yeah.
And they haven't gone through 80 years of training telling them that this is impossible over and over and over again.
And corruption by the Black Oddjaw.
Yeah, and look, Elaine's always like this. She's like, well, if anyone can do it, I certainly can. And she just will not accept that anyone telling her that this is impossible. In the same way that Nynaeve hears over and over people tell her, you're wasting your time. This is never going to work. Like, everyone knows this is false, but Nynaeve refuses to believe them.
There's also the other thing here, that 2 or 3 times she thought she had seen a glimmer in someone's eye when she demonstrated something. Which to me means it's not so much that these are lost talents as the people who rediscover them keep it to themselves.
Yes.
And so you end up with these little pools of talent where maybe 5 people over there know how to do this and maybe 2 people over there know how to do that. So of course, like, the talents come and go as everyone who knows how to do it dies off and then it gets rediscovered by a whole new group of people.
Of course.
But without actual information sharing, which I'm sure is caused by the Black Tower creating distrust.
I can see it. I could see myself if I felt a little nervous in that situation. Like, first of all, do you want everyone to know that you have the ability to listen to their conversations? And second of all, do you want everybody to now have the ability to listen to your conversations? Because that's what's going to happen if you give this information. So maybe don't. And I mean, Moraine didn't.
Do you want everyone to be able to cast invisibility and sneak around?
Right?
No.
Someone might use that against you.
Harry Potter taught us how bad that was.
I want to also add, I guess, I understand how that does nothing for progress, that kind of thinking, but I also understand why, a handful of women in this room probably already knew the weave for eavesdropping. And we even hear Jania say she was talking to another Aes Sedai who says she thinks she may be able to change that weave so that she might be able to say words instead into someone's ear from far away. And another incredibly useful weave. And that made me think maybe she already knows how to do that.
Telephones. Then she's already thought about that a lot.
And you just keep it real quiet, between you and one other person or something, and now you guys have a one-up on everyone else. Don't you want to keep that, I mean, I would be tempted to.
Oh, Painted Dead brings up another point. Perrin broke the hedgehog, ter'angreal. So, ter'angreal, he broke it in Tel'aran'rhiod, but certainly ter'angreal are breakable.
Oh yeah, there's another one. Rand breaks the sad bracelets, but I guess that's with the true power, so that's a little different.
That is a little different. That is the one thing that seems to be able to break Gwendiar. And I believe the sad bracelets are specifically described as made of Gwendiar. Like how when Elaine hears that Min's going off to meet Rand, she tried not to think of the fact that if she bound and gagged Min with power and inverted the weave, it's like using the special talents that she's learned from the Forsaken, she could prevent Min from going to her boyfriend. Again, Elaine is 17 years old.
And, Kel says, what a chick. I guess I just like to remind everyone in these situations when these things come up that would have crossed literally all of our minds. If you had the power to do such a thing, you would have to consider doing it before you didn't do it. I feel like any human being, like, given the ability to, say, go to your boyfriend's house or wherever your boyfriend is at whatever time, like like Elaine just learned, it's very tempting to use that power. And I think anybody would be hard pressed to just to not use it. So I think Elaine is pretty exceptional that she doesn't bind and gag Min. Although I guess there would be consequences ultimately in the long run.
Consequences, schmonsequences.
Right, if you don't share the weave for traveling with everyone, then no one can catch you, so no consequences. True, it's true. Power.
Sorry, I'm Googling some stuff. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson says the domination bands were made of Quendiar.
Okay. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to ask about aloud before I did a read. That's a lot of the conversation between Min and Elaine. So here, I'll just read this for a little context. Her modest statement unleashed a torrent from Janya. Nonsense, child. Absolute nonsense. Why, I've no doubt that as soon as we are back in the tower and can test you properly and put the oath rod in your hand, you'll be raised to the shawl as well as the ring. No doubt. You really are fulfilling the promise that was seen in you, and more. No one could have expected... Anaya touched her arm again. It seemed a set signal, because once more Janya stopped and blinked. No need to swell the child's head too far, Anaya said. Elaine, I'll have no sulking out of you. You should have outgrown that long since. The mother could be firm as well as kindly. I won't have you pouting over a few failures, not when your successes were so wonderful. Why does Elaine refer to Anaya as the mother? What the heck is that? The motherly character? Is that why she calls her the mother? Like the motherly presence that was Anaya? Is that what that means? Or why does she call her the mother?
So what's going on there is that's Elaine is thinking in her head about Anya. So the Anya is a mother.
So this is just, she sees Anaya as a motherly character.
Yeah.
And so she calls her that in her head. I was just wondering what she was thinking and what that meant. Why she would say that. Or why she would think that.
Mother is not capitalized. Yeah, no.
Correct, Bambi. Yeah, it's lowercase m. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a little unusual. I think Elaine does describe her as a bit motherly at some point in this chapter, and then later refers to her as the mother could be firm as well as kindly.
You are making great strides, Elaine, Anaya said calmly. The bluff-faced woman was always calm. Motherly, in quotes, was the word to describe her.
Right.
So that's that. I think she's just, and that's 2 paragraphs earlier. So I think that mother there is just referencing that earlier quote describing Anaya as motherly. That's
okay.
all.
I was hoping to find something there, but I didn't really know what it would be. She's just a motherly character. Or motherly looking.
Jordan overloads the word mother so hard. Mother and child.
It can mean a lot, and it can mean not very much, yeah. You could just look like you might be a mom, yeah.
Especially with Children of the Light.
But that's all I wanted to say before Elaine excuses herself right after that to go find Min, because Min is about to leave. And I have a page or 2 to read there. A lot of this is a dialogue between Min and Elaine, but it's also Elaine's thoughts on everything that's happening around her, and like how much manipulation and subterfuge is happening constantly. There was so much subterfuge here in Saladar. Not just Brigida and Megiddion. One of the oaths kept an Aes Sedai from lying, but what was not spoken of it did not have to be lied over. Moraine had known how to weave a cloak of invisibility, maybe the same one they learned from Megiddion. Nynaeve had seen Moraine do it once, before Nynaeve knew anything of the power. No one else in Saladar had known, though, or admitted to it anyway. Brigida had confirmed what Elaine had begun to suspect. Most Aes Sedai, maybe all, kept back at least part of what they learned. Most had their own secret tricks. Those might become common knowledge taught to novices or accepted, if enough Aes Sedai learned them. Or they might die with the Aes Sedai. 2 or 3 times she thought she had seen a glimmer in someone's eyes when she demonstrated something. Karenna had leapt onto the eavesdropping trick with suspicious quickness, but it was hardly the sort of accusation an accepted could make against an Aes Sedai. Knowing did not make her own deceptions more palatable, but maybe it helped a little. That, and remembering necessity, if only they would stop praising her for what she had not done. She was sure she knew where to find Min. The river Eldar lay not 3 miles west of Saladar, and a tiny stream ran through the edge of the village on its way through the forest to the river. Most of the trees that had grown up in the front of the town had been cut down after the Aes Sedai began arriving, but a small patch on the stream's bank remained behind some houses, on a scrap of land too narrow to be useful. Min claimed to like cities best, yet she often went to sit among those trees. It was a way to escape the company of Aes Sedai and warders, a while, and for Min, that was almost essential. Sure enough, when Elaine edged her way around the corner of a stone house onto the slender strip, along a runnel of water no wider, Min was sitting there, with her back against a tree, watching the little brook burble over rocks, as much as was left of it. The stream trickled down a bed of dried mud twice as wide as it was. The trees held a few leaves here, though most of the surrounding forest was beginning to go bare, even the oaks. A dried branch cracked under Elaine's slipper, and Min jumped to her feet. As usual, she wore a boy's gray coat and breeches, but she had small flowers embroidered on the lapels and up the sides of the snug legs. Oddly, since she said 3 aunts who raised her had been seamstresses, Min seemed not to know one end of a needle from the other. She stared at Elaine, then grimaced and ran fingers through her dark shoulder-length hair. "You know," was all she said. "I thought we should talk." Min scrubbed her hands through her hair again. "Swan didn't tell me until this morning. I've been trying to work up courage to tell you ever since. She wants me to spy on him, Elaine, for the embassy, and she gave me names in Camelin, people who can send messages back to her." "You won't do it, of course," Elaine said, without a hint of question, and Min gave her a grateful look. "Why were you so afraid to come to me? We are friends, Min, and we promised each other not to let a man come between us, even if we do both love him." Min's laugh had a huskiness to it. Elaine supposed many men would find that attractive, and she was pretty, in a mischievous sort of way, and a few years older. Was that in her favor or against? "Oh, Elaine, we said that when he was safely away from both of us, losing you would be like losing a sister. But what if one of us changes her mind?" Best not to ask which of them that was supposed to be. Elaine tried not to think of the fact that if she bound and gagged Min with the power and inverted the weave, she might be able to hide the woman in a basement until the embassy was long gone. "We won't," she said simply. No, she could not do that to Min. She wanted Randall to herself, but she could not hurt Min. Maybe she could just ask the other woman not to go until they both could. Instead, she said, "Is Gareth releasing you from your oath?" This time Min's laugh was a bark. "Hardly. He says he'll make me work it off sooner or later. Swan's the one he really wants to hold on to. The light knows why." The slight tensing of her face made Elaine think there was a viewing involved in it, but she did not ask. Min never talked about those unless they concerned you.
So I think there's definitely a viewing involved.
Yes, and we know that. That, I believe it's that once Gareth and Swan start spending a lot of time together, they must stay together. And if they are apart for any period of time, then they become vulnerable. That they could die if they leave each other's presence.
Totally. I wonder, that must be a relatively new viewing. I think it has to have happened after he showed up. Because I don't think it happened when they were in the barn.
Yes. Yeah, I believe that's right. And part of the reason I wanted to highlight this little bit is because this starts with, there was so much subterfuge here in Saladar, and boy is that frustrating, right? And then, like 3 paragraphs later, Min's saying she's going with the embassy to Camelin, and Swan wants her to spy on Rand and his delegates and send things back, and Elaine's like, "Yeah, you're not going to do that though, right?" And all these women are allies. They're all allies, and they're all working against each other while they're working together.
They all have their own agenda and people they want to support and goals, yeah.
I thought that put itself together very neatly when Elaine's like, "Boy, there's so much subterfuge happening here." And then we're describing how Swan is trying to get Min to like do subterfuge on Rand, but they're going to do subterfuge instead on Swan by not reporting or falsely reporting the things that she thinks that they're spying on. It. Like, it's so complicated. Everybody's misinforming and lying to each other all the time.
And I just love how well it works.
Yeah, like 3 paragraphs after Elaine is like, "Man, this would be so much easier if everyone would just like be straight up with each other." She and Min are talking about how they're not going to give Swan all the information that they have. Mm-hmm. 3 paragraphs, like it's it's amazing that they don't realize their own
Aes Sedai scheming. The hypocrisy, yeah. For some reason, we're not very good at that. Turns out. Unfortunately, I don't have that problem at all.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we all human beings do, and that's what makes this so charming. But at the same time, it's while the two are talking about how much subterfuge there is, they're also planning their subterfuge against everyone else. Yeah, it's just too good. It's too good. I'll read a little more. This one last paragraph I thought was kind of interesting. It's about Min's ability. I don't know how much there is to...
I thought it was interesting we get the third letter from Elaine.
Yes, that's part of the reason I wanted to include this. She had an ability known to few in Saladar. Elaine and Nynaeve, Swan and Leanne. That was all. Brigida did not know, but then Min did not know about Brigida, or Moghedien. So many secrets. But Min's was her own. Kinda. Sometimes she saw images or auras around people, and sometimes she knew what they meant. When she knew, she was always right. For instance, if she said a man and a woman would marry, then sooner or later they married, even if they plainly hated one another now. Leanne called it reading the pattern, but it had nothing to do with the power. Most people carried the images only occasionally, but Aes Sedai and warders almost always. Min's retreats were to escape that deluge. "Will you carry a letter to Rand for me?" "Of course." The other woman's assent was so quick, her face so open, that Elaine blushed and went on hurriedly. She was not sure she would have agreed had the circumstances been reversed.
What does Elaine's letter say? Do you remember?
I don't remember anything about this third one. No, I can't say that I do.
Do you think Min never gives it to him?
Oh dear. No, I don't think Min would do that.
No. I seem to recall her giving it to him at some point in the series.
Poor Rand's like, oh good, another letter. Great. Will I be confused for 3 more months? Perfect. He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. I'm just going mad from the power over here. Just, poke the bull.
There's a whole chapter called Letters.
Oh, we saw Charmian Discord told us that she does indeed hand it off. Texas Blade agrees.
Yeah, I remember her handing it off. I'm just trying to remember I'm trying to figure out what the contents are.
Rand's like, oh great, another confusing letter, but at least she said she loves me this time. And this is a shorty readout compared to my usual readouts. Elaine let her head fall back against the tree. Let's talk of something happy. The sun sat molten overhead through the branches. The sky was a clear sheet of blue, unmarked by even one cloud on the horizon. On impulse, she opened herself to Saidar and let it fill her, as though all the joy of life in the world had been distilled and every drop in her veins replaced with the essence. If she could make just one cloud form, it would be a sign that everything would come out all right. Her mother would be alive, Rand would love her, and Moghedien would be dealt with. Somehow. She wove a tenuous web through the sky as far as she could see, using air and water, searching for the moisture for a cloud. If she only strained hard enough, the sweetness quickly built close to pain, the danger sign, draw much more of the power, and she could still herself. Just one little cloud. Happy? Min said. Well, I know you don't want to talk about Rand, but aside from you and me, he's still the most important thing in the world right now, and the happiest. Forsaken fall dead when he appears, and nations line up to bow. The Aes Sedai here are ready to support him. I know they are, Elaine. They have to. Why? Next Elida will hand the tower over to him. The last battle will be a walk for him. He's winning, Elaine. We're winning. Releasing the source, Elaine sagged back, staring at a sky as empty as her mood had become. You did not need to be able to channel to see the Dark One's hand at work. And if he could touch the world this much, if he could touch it at all. Are we? She said, but too softly for Min to hear.
I don't think they are. I think that's setting up the fact that this book is them going to be losing a lot. I mean, yes, he appears to have some victories, but...
Right, they've won some battles, but is anyone going to be able to eat in 2 months?
Is Rand going to be sane in 2 months?
Is the Dark One going to be free in 2 months? Tomorrow? Is he already?
Is the Dark One put a Dark Friend in charge of training Rand's male channelers? Is there a Dark Friend in charge of the White Tower? Is there a Dark Friend in charge of the Little White Tower? Yeah. Is the White Tower broken?
In charge of the Black Tower?
Yeah. As far as I can tell, at the end of this book, the Dark One has all of his pieces in perfect position to win. Yeah, he's lost some Forsaken, but who cares? He doesn't.
You can get some more.
He resurrects a few. Yeah, he lost lost a couple, but bring back. We're about to see the return of Arengar and Osingar, the return of Ishmael.
Very few of them stay dead.
Just the Balefired ones. We'll send see Lanfear come back.
Bilal, Ravine, Asmodean.
Stay dead. I played through Diablo 3 for the first time.
Whoa, you just got that thing like last week. Right?
It is not a good game.
It's not good?
No. It's a kind of terrible remake of Diablo 2.
Well, that's fair. Because Diablo 2 was pretty great, and, 3 came out a long time ago.
Yeah, 2012, I think. And it didn't get... I did not enjoy the playthrough. I think I played through a little too quickly. I played on the easy level, and I don't know. It wasn't a challenge. I found the storyline to be meh. Good cutscenes, as always. Blizzard does good cutscenes, but I didn't feel like there were enough of them. You know.
Fair enough. I never played 3.
But yeah, me and Travis sat down, and with 2 of us playing, we blew through that thing. It took me 3 days to get through, an hour per act, maybe, or 2 hours per act.
I could see it.
5 acts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty accomplished RPG player. I feel like I can tear my way through most things in a short period of time. If I'm really putting my heart into it, which means I'm not sleeping.
Gotcha. Those are the good games.
There's a whole system of Seth, what is the word for false beliefs?
Superstition?
Yes. God damn it. Thank you. There's a whole set of superstitions in the service industry about how to get customers to walk in the door. I've worked with various bartenders over the years, and lots of people have oh man, I'm not going to make any money today. Well, I better order an elaborate shift meal right now. Or, Kirsten. Or I better empty out the ice well and pretend like no one's going to walk in. Or I had better go outside and light a cigarette. Then people will start walking in. It's always around that. Cooks too. It's the same. Yep.
In the kitchen, as soon as you're done making your shift meal, that ticket machine starts going.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for everyone. Oh man, we're pockets are hurting today. All right, let's everyone order our shift meals right now. We won't be able to eat them, but at least customers will come in. We'll eat cold eggs 4 hours from now. Yeah.
The other way to do it is be like, hey man, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. By the time you finish that sentence, I guarantee you the ticket machine will start printing. Oh, fuck. That sound really does. Oh my god. It grabs your attention in a way. Honestly, now, I don't want to sit near... I don't like sitting near the kitchen because I can hear the printer going, and it gives me a little bit of stress. Because it makes me want to step up and start cooking something.
Yeah. I get that totally.
It's I can't relax.
Right. I've heard
there's a printer machine.
All my coworkers say at some point, oh man, I had a nightmare last night. All the
Oh, stop.
Read. Ah, shit, I haven't even pulled the first one.
I think with servers too, the bell.
Oh god, yeah. That can be a stress inducer just because hot food getting cold.
You don't want the cooks. Yeah. Right. You know it's sitting there.
And customers but can we talk about, so where's your chicken from? And that's the second time the bell got rang, and you're like, motherfucking fuck.
Oh god. Waking up in the middle of the night, realizing that you forgot the side they asked you for. 6 hours later.
I forgot your tea.
No!
I have woke up in the middle of the night and being like, oh my god, I forgot that lady's tea.
God, we put parsley on everything, and sometimes I'll forget to sprinkle the parsley on top of shit. And it's entirely a decorative thing.
Yeah.
Well, the scene will be like, oh, I forgot the parsley on that fucking sausage on hour 2 of my shift. It's stupid. It's weird that our minds hold on to that stuff. But if you asked me how many meals I made in a day, I would have no idea. There's no way I could count them. I wouldn't be able to count them up. I couldn't even estimate.
Nah.
Somewhere between 10 and 100, I think.
Somewhere between March and August. That's my joke these days. I don't know.
What day is it? It ends in Y. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, Kels. I considered, well, trying to do something like what you're doing. I mean, I wouldn't have had a property, but doing like a guiding, trying to start a guide company. Yeah, this was back years ago, and yeah, I mean, all I really want to do is like hang around outside and walk and hike and climb, read books. That's all I really want to do. But it doesn't pay very well. Even if you can line up work, you can usually only line it up seasonally, and it's not a lot. And a lot of what some guys and gals are making a good amount of money out there, or making a living at least, seem to be, they have a lot more technical skill than I. I don't have any technical climbing skill. I have lived outdoors for really long periods of time, but I wouldn't feel confident tying myself to a mountain, that's for sure. I'd hire someone for that. If I wanted to do a big peak, I'd hire someone to come with me.
You did that ice climbing when you were going over the PCT, right?
Yeah. And that was wicked dangerous. Yeah, that was extremely dangerous.
Like, I almost died a couple of times. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah. There's some moments where I didn't even lose my balance, I wouldn't say, but you have that moment where you almost lose your balance and you just sweat for 2 seconds, you know what I mean? Because it's
the adrenaline
it's
hits.
not a sheer drop from anywhere I was climbing, really. You'd probably fall a good distance, maybe 10 feet or something, and then you'd slam into the side of the mountain, which is frozen ice, and slide. And so,
then do it all over again.
You can, well, if you don't hit any rocks on the way down, concuss and freaking die. You might be able to get up.
How many times would you fall and hit something? Like, how many slopes are there to fall down?
There were times I slipped and I had to arrest myself. But I had the spikes strapped to my shoes and my ice axe, which the long blades for arresting, and the shallow, wide blade is for cutting steps. This is all the technical knowledge and skill that I have around this. So, I was able to cut steps out of a slope with the wide blade and just keep going. Don't look down too much because it makes me nervous.
Crazy.
But yeah, if you just keep going up, you're all right.
Uh-huh. I
didn't die.
Yeah, that's...
I'm all right. And there were definitely some moments I remember where I was like, if I slipped on the slope, I would be fine. Talking myself down from fear, but also knowing that if you continue to slide, you're going to slide all the way down the embankment, and then usually out across, there would be sheets of frozen ponds at the base of the climb usually, And that's even more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're 100 miles from the nearest road, it's 20 degrees outside, and you're soaking wet. You're going to fucking die. No one can save you. No ropes.
Not roped in?
Well, it's not like the kind of climbing you're doing. It's not, straight up and down technical stuff. A lot of it you can hike. A lot of it, people could walk up. I cut steps, but I get a little nervous about heights, and I take my time, even if people make fun of me, because it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, heights can kill you.
But if you cut your step, place your boot, cut your step, place your boot, one at a time. It doesn't matter if it takes all day. You'll get there. Just don't look down.
It's better than the alternative, I guess.
Quitting? Going home?
Or not getting there.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if anyone that got badly injured that year. Any thru hikers, or anyway. I remember reading some articles about a guy that disappeared in the area that I'm thinking of, which is around the area of Mount Whitney, but he apparently tried to climb Whitney unassisted and did not use a trail. So he was like trying to do one of the more technical climbs without any help and not the right equipment. I do remember reading that he was missing. But that does happen every year. People try to climb this stuff alone, not in a group, no one's watching their back, without the right equipment. Like, oh well, the mountain's not going to take sympathy on you.
You are not the hero in the story.
Nature is the hero in this story. You're a minor character in it.
You are the extra in someone else's story, as they say. Very dispensable.
It's that group on the AT who used to say to each other, "Mom's not your friend. She's your mom." In reference to nature.
Oh, the other thing I did read is The City We Became. I finished that before we dig in. Excellent book. Highly recommend it. N.K. Jemisin knocks it out of the park again. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's next on my list.
N.K. Jemisin just, of course, like, brilliant. I got Travis. He's about a third of the way through it, maybe.
Is it a standalone?
I don't think so. The story's pretty well wrapped up at the end, but it's got loose ends.
It's called The City We Became, right?
Yep.
I'm just making sure that's on my list.
And you have to do the audiobook on this one.
Fine. I'm just playing.
Letting you know.
I have heard you rave about that, and I've heard other people talk about how much they loved the audio in particular of that. So let me check that out. She's been she's been under the weather. She doesn't have COVID symptoms, but she does seem virusy. She just seems tired, tired and achy.
I mean, depression. I'm tired and achy because I'm home all day with nothing to do and I don't move.
Oh, I was going to say about Julia, it crossed my mind, not that she's depressed, but that she's like a really active human. She's very like task oriented. I feel like it's particularly hard on her to not have like a structure to her day, She's not good at screwing around, wasting time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we don't have that problem.
Right, I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, that is not something I'm struggling with right now. I have 20 things I'm doing right now at any given time. I have like 5 screens open, a dog to play with. Like, I'm not bored. I miss people, but I'm not struggling with being bored.
I have to get up and move, but I don't have to be accomplishing anything in particular. I can just be walking. As long as I'm walking, I can stay sane. My neighbor, they're this super cute older couple, these guys, and they own the property on either side of my property, and they one of them is like the gardener in the couple, and he takes care of the properties, and he's been chatting with me since we moved in. He really wants me to like maintenance the property that I live on, which is just kind of, frankly, the landscaping is just kind of junky. It looks like no one has cared for years, basically.
Who owns the property? Just a rental company?
Some guy that lives in Australia. Yeah. I think he owns several properties, and I met him once.
Those damn Australians.
Oh, what? He's an American originally. I get he probably married an Australian or something and ended up out there. But he hires some woman, and she looks after his properties here and just like collects the rent, and if there's a problem, I text her and she handles it. Oh, but yeah, the point is our property just has like the staple like rosemary, sage, and thyme that is on every Portland front lawn. But the bushes are all overgrown and like...
Because they grow like crazy.
Mm-hmm. And there's no tree on our lot either. And he wants me to plant a tree, which I support. So I might front some money to work on the property. And he's very knowledgeable about local stuff. So I'm a little excited to work with him on that. Buy a couple of trees and plant them, and rip out the grass and plant something local.
I mean, gardening and puppies. What else is there to talk about these days?
Is there anything else that's actually important? I don't really...
I made bread, like everybody else. It's not the sourdough. I just made a plain yeasty white bread. Turned out pretty good. I was very happy with it.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?